My aunt looked at me and asked why my family gave up the house. I looked back at her and said, "We didn't give it up. We stepped aside because your brother was moving in. There's a difference." That's the moment everything I thought I understood about my grandparents' house, the house my own parents built, paid for, and maintained for over 2 decades, started to fall apart in front of me. This is that story. My brother and I didn't grow up with our parents in the house. We grew up with our grandparents from the time I was 3 years old. I'm 27 now. That's 24 years of waking up under the same roof as two people who, by the time I understood what family meant, had already given me most of my childhood. My grandparents had 7 children, 4 sons, 3 daughters. Out of all 7, only my youngest aunt, the oot of the family, still lived close by. Everyone else had scattered, chasing work and a better life, some of them almost 1,000 kilometers away. Holidays were the only time the house was ever full. The house itself wasn't something that just existed. It was something my parents built, piece by piece, decade by decade. Every wall, every renovation, every piece of furniture, my parents paid for it. My parents maintained it. That's not a small detail. That's going to matter a lot later in this story. Among the 7 siblings, there was my second uncle. I'll call him Uncle High, a teacher close to retirement. And out of all their children, he was the one my grandparents loved the most. Everyone in the family knew it. Nobody really talked about it out loud, but everyone knew. My grandmother, in her 80s now, has started slipping. Some memory loss, some confusion, and for reasons none of us ever fully understood, she never really warmed up to my father, her own son. It was just something everyone quietly accepted and worked around. So that was the setup. A house my parents built with their own hands and money. A grandmother who loved one son more than the others and never really loved my father at all. And a family spread out across the country, coming together only a few times a year. None of us knew that one dinner, one family meeting, was about to turn all of that into a war. It happened during a death anniversary gathering, a gioa on my father's side of the family. In Vietnamese culture, these gatherings bring almost everyone home. It's one of the few times all 4 sons and 3 daughters are actually in the same place at the same time. Someone suggested, since everyone was already there, that they should hold a family meeting. Talk about the house, about what happens to it, about who takes care of it going forward. The night before, my parents did something most people in their position wouldn't have done. They went to my grandmother directly and asked her, plainly, "What do you want to happen to the house?" She told them she wanted it to go to Uncle High. The next morning, the meeting happened. It was early enough that my youngest aunt couldn't make it. She had something to take care of that morning, so she wasn't there when it happened. My father stood up. In front of almost the whole family, he relayed exactly what my grandmother had told him and my mother the night before. He said, plainly, that it was our grandparents' wish that the house go to Uncle High, and asked what everyone thought. Uncle High said okay. And that was it. No argument, no pushback, a decision made peacefully by the people it actually concerned. With my father, the son my grandmother didn't even love, the one who stood up and honored her wish anyway. For a moment, it felt over, settled, peaceful. We had no idea it was about to become the opposite of peaceful. My youngest aunt came home later that day. She hadn't been at the meeting, and when she heard what happened, she didn't hear the family agreed peacefully to honor grandmother's wish. She heard something else entirely. She came straight to me and asked why my family was giving up the house, why we were abandoning it. I looked at her and said the only thing that made sense to me. We're not giving it up. Uncle High is moving in, so we're the ones who have to move out. That's not abandoning anything. That's just what happens when someone else moves into a house. She didn't see it that way. And from there, it turned into back and forth arguing. The kind where nobody's really listening anymore, just defending their version of what happened. My father walked back into the house. Here's the thing you need to understand about where my grandparents actually live. My older brother's family, his wife, their 2 kids, they live there too with my grandparents. But the house itself sits on my grandparents' land. My parents built the physical house. My brother's family just lives in it, taking care of my grandparents day to day. And there's a tradition here that matters. My grandparents wanted the house to eventually become what's called a nihato, an ancestral worship house, a place where incense gets lit, where the family gathers to honor the ancestors, where someone stays to take care of it and keep the tradition alive. So naturally, the question became, who takes care of it? Who lights the incense? Uncle Hai's answer was that my brother, over 30 years old, married, with 2 kids, wasn't old enough to be the one lighting incense for the ancestors. He also pointed out that my father was still out working, still trying to make a living. So how could he possibly come back and take on that responsibility? Uncle Hai, on the other hand, was about to retire. He had the time. That logic might have made sense on its own, but it opened the door to something much worse. Because once that conversation started, my aunts and Uncle Hai turned it around completely. They said my family was abandoning our grandparents, that we didn't want to take responsibility. That's why Uncle Hai had to step up, because we wouldn't. Nobody, not one person, ever asked my family if we wanted to take it. Not once. And here's what made it worse. My grandmother herself said she wanted Uncle Hai to have it. She said it directly, the night before, to my own parents' faces. And yet somehow, my family became the ones accused of being ungrateful, of abandoning the people who raised us. My grandmother said the words, "You all grew up under our roof. We raised you completely, and now you're just leaving." I need you to sit with that for a second. My parents built that house, every wall of it. My parents paid for the renovations, the furniture, everything in it for decades. My family has spent years, real money, real effort, caring for grandparents who are both in their 80s. And the one time we tried to explain any of that, we got called out for kele, for whining, for complaining, for making excuses. You do the work quietly for 20 years. And the one time you try to say, "We did this too," you're the bad guy for bringing it up. After that argument broke out, after everyone turned on my family for something we never even agreed to in the first place, Uncle Hai backed out. He didn't take the house after all. My family's first instinct was to build a separate house for my older brother and his wife. Because honestly, after everything that had just happened, nobody thought it was possible for them to keep living under the same roof as Uncle Hai anymore. But then we thought about it differently. My grandparents are in their 80s. However this played out, they still needed someone there taking care of them every single day. So my brother and his wife made the decision to stay. Not because anyone forced them to, not because anyone thanked them for it. They stayed because of my grandparents, not because of anything that had just been said about my family. In the end, here's where things settled. My brother's family stays with my grandparents for now, taking care of them day to day. When my grandparents eventually pass, my brother will build a home of his own. In the house, the one my parents built with their own hands, the one that started this entire argument, will become the ancestral worship house for the whole family. Shared, not owned by any one branch. Nobody in that meeting ever asked my family what we wanted. Not when the decision was made, and not when the blame started flying afterward. We built it. We maintained it for decades. We took care of the people inside it. And somehow, In the one conversation that decided its future, our voice was the one nobody thought to include. I'm not telling you this story because I want sympathy. I'm telling you because I think a lot of people who grew up taking care of family, quietly, without asking for credit, will recognize this feeling. The moment you realize that doing everything right doesn't protect you from being blamed anyway. The people who build the house aren't always the ones who get asked what should happen to it.